Since 2013, the federal watchdog that investigates the IRS has confirmed that more than 16,000 people have collectively lost over $114 million to a single scam. Not 16,000 people who almost fell for it. 16,000 people who actually sent the money. Wire transfers, prepaid debit cards, gift cards bought at a drugstore counter and read off digit by digit over the phone. And every single one of those 16,000 people believed in the moment they were dialing or driving to the store that they were talking to a real employee of the Internal Revenue Service. Here's what should unsettle you about that number. The IRS has never once in its entire history called someone out of nowhere and demanded a gift card. Not once. Every person who lost money in that $114 million total was tricked by the same handful of sentences, dressed up slightly differently each time, but built on the same 4 impossible claims. If you can recognize those 4 things the moment you hear them, you will never be one of those 16,000 people, no matter how convincing the voice on the other end sounds. I'm Henry Collins. If you're new here, hit subscribe now, because I spend every week breaking down exactly what real government agencies do and don't do, so you never have to guess in the moment when it actually matters. Today I want to walk you through the 4 things the IRS will never say to you, why each one is designed to work specifically on someone who spent a lifetime being a responsible, rule-following taxpayer, and exactly what to do the moment you hear one of them. Let's start with the first one, because it's the one that catches people fastest. The IRS will never call you and demand immediate payment. Not a call out of nowhere, not a voicemail, not a text message. If you genuinely owe the IRS money, here is what actually happens in order every single time with no exceptions. You get a letter on paper through the United States Postal Service. It has a notice number in the corner. It explains exactly what you owe and why, and it gives you a real window of time to respond, to pay, or to dispute it. The IRS does not skip that letter and jump straight to a phone call demanding you settle up today. If a voice on the phone is telling you that you owe money right now, this minute, with no letter ever having arrived first, you are not talking to the IRS. You are talking to someone who is counting on you being too rattled to remember that the mail always comes first. I want to be specific about why the mail first rule exists, because understanding the reason makes it much harder for a scammer to talk you out of it in the moment. Every genuine notice the IRS sends carries a CP number or an LTR number printed in the corner, a reference code tied to your actual account, and the specific issue being raised. That number exists so that if you ever do call the IRS or a tax professional, that person can pull up the exact notice and confirm it's real within moments. A phone call has no equivalent. There's no reference number you can independently verify, no paper trail sitting in a drawer that a second person can look at and confirm matches what the caller is telling you. That's not a coincidence. It's the entire reason scammers prefer the phone in the first place. It leaves nothing behind for you to check against. The second thing ties directly into the first, and it's just as absolute. The IRS will never demand payment without giving you a chance to question or appeal what you supposedly owe. Real tax debt comes with a process. You have the right to see the calculation, to challenge it, to bring in a tax professional, to go through an appeals process that can take weeks or months if you choose to use it. That right doesn't evaporate because someone on the phone says it's urgent. If the person you're speaking with refuses to let you ask a single question, refuses to explain how the number was calculated, and insists you have to decide in the next few minutes that refusal itself is the proof. A real government process that involves your money always leaves room for you to push back. The absence of that room is the scam announcing itself. Think about how unusual that absence actually is once you compare it to literally any other financial obligation in your life. Your mortgage company sends you a statement you can dispute. Your credit card company gives you a process to challenge a charge. Even a parking ticket comes with a court date and a chance to explain yourself to a judge. The IRS, an agency handling the single largest financial relationship most Americans have with the federal government, would be the one exception in your entire financial life with zero appeals process and zero right to ask a question. That should sound as strange to you as it actually is, because it's not how any part of the real system works at any level for any amount of money. The The third thing is the one that should end the conversation before it even gets started, and I want you to actually picture this in your head because it will help you recognize it faster than any list of warning signs ever could. The IRS will never threaten to have you arrested, deported, or have your driver's license revoked over the phone. Think about how strange that claim actually is when you slow down and look at it directly. A phone call from a stranger telling you that armed officers are about to show up at your door within the hour unless you personally hand over payment right now over the phone to them specifically. That is not how law enforcement works in this country at any level for any reason. Real legal consequences, if they existed, would come through the actual court system, with paperwork, with your right to an attorney, with a process that takes time and involves people whose job is not to also collect your payment on the same phone call. The moment arrest, deportation, or a suspended license enters the conversation as something that happens today, unless you pay today, you're listening to a script written by someone who has never worked inside any actual government agency in their life. I want to add one more layer to this specific rule, because scammers have gotten cleverer about how they deliver the threat. Rather than making the arrest threat themselves, some operations will have a second caller phone you back within the hour, claiming to be a local sheriff's deputy or federal marshal, confirming that a warrant has indeed been issued and that officers are already en route. This is designed to feel like independent confirmation from a second, unrelated source, which makes the original threat feel more credible. It is the same scam run by the same people wearing a second costume. Real law enforcement does not coordinate an arrest over the phone with the person about to be arrested, and it certainly doesn't give that person a chance to pay their way out of it before officers arrive. The fourth thing is the most practical one, and it's the detail that trips up people who've otherwise heard all the warnings. The IRS will never require a specific, unusual payment method like a gift card, a prepaid debit card, cryptocurrency, or a wire transfer. Think about why a legitimate government agency collecting legitimate tax debt would never ask for this. The IRS has bank accounts. It has an entire payment processing system built for checks, direct debits, and standard electronic transfers, the same ones you already use to pay your mortgage or your utility bill. There is no legitimate reason for a real government debt to be settled with an iTunes gift card read-off over the phone. None. The only reason a scammer asks for a gift card specifically is that gift card funds move instantly, cannot be reversed once the code is shared, and are nearly impossible to trace back to whoever cashed them out. If someone claiming to be from the IRS ever asks you to walk to a store and buy a gift card, you are not paying a tax bill. You are handing untraceable cash to a criminal, dressed up in a costume borrowed from a trusted government name. Now notice something about all four of these together, because I think it matters more than memorizing each one individually. Every single one of them exists to remove your ability to slow down and check. No letter first, so you can't compare the call to something official already in your hands. No chance to question the amount, so you can't pause and think it through. Threats of immediate arrest, so fear replaces judgment. An unusual, irreversible payment method, so once the money moves, there's no getting it back and no bank to call for a reversal. Strip away the specific words, and what's underneath is always the same shape. Take away your time to think, take away your ability to verify, and take away any path to undo it once it's done. Once you can see that shape, you don't need to memorize every version of the script scammers use because you'll recognize the outline underneath whatever version reaches you. Let me walk you through how this actually sounds, because knowing the four rules in the abstract is different from recognizing them in the middle of an actual call. Picture a woman named Carol Ann, 74, retired from teaching third grade for over 30 years outside of Springfield, Missouri. On a Tuesday afternoon in February, her phone rings and the screen genuinely displays Internal Revenue Service, along with a Washington, D.C. area code. She answers, because 30 years of parent-teacher conferences taught her that you answer the phone when it rings. The voice on the other end introduces himself with a name and a badge number, tells her there's a discrepancy in her 2019 tax filing, that she owes $4,200 in back taxes and penalties, and that if it isn't resolved today, a warrant will be issued for her arrest within the hour. Carol Ann, understandably shaken, asks if she can call the IRS back to confirm this. The man tells her that once a case is escalated to enforcement, Taxpayers are not permitted to call in directly, that doing so would only delay the process and increase the chance of arrest. He tells her the fastest way to resolve it is to go to the Walgreens 2 miles from her house, purchase 4 separate $500 Google Play gift cards, and read him the codes on the back over the phone. Look at what just happened in that call, matched against the 4 things we just walked through. No letter had ever arrived. First rule broken. She was told she couldn't question it or call back to verify. Second rule broken. Arrest was threatened within the hour. Third rule broken. And the payment method was gift cards from a drugstore. Fourth rule broken in the most literal sense possible, since gift cards are the single most common demand in this exact scam nationwide. All 4 warning signs present in one 11-minute phone call. Carol Ann, to her credit, told the caller she needed to think about it and hung up. She called her son that evening, mentioned the strange call almost as an afterthought, and he was the one who told her calmly that none of what she just described was something the real IRS does. She never lost $1. But she told me afterward that for about 20 minutes standing in her kitchen, she genuinely believed she was about to be arrested. And that feeling, she said, was worse than almost anything else that's happened to her in retirement. What strikes me most about Carol Ann's story isn't that she almost fell for it. It's how close the outcome came down to one small habit, mentioning it out loud to someone else before acting. She didn't have the 4 rules memorized that afternoon. She didn't recognize the scam in real time. What saved her $4,200 was simply pausing long enough to talk it through with another person before walking into that Walgreens. That's a smaller, more repeatable lesson than know the 4 rules, even though I want you to know the 4 rules too. It's this: before you act on any urgent financial demand over the phone, say it out loud to one other person first, even if that person is nobody but yourself talking through it slowly in your own kitchen. Urgency depends on you staying alone with the fear. The moment you say it out loud to someone else, even just to explain what just happened, the story tends to fall apart in your own mouth before they even respond. Comment down below if you've ever gotten a call that made your stomach drop like that, even if you never lost any money, because I think a lot of you have a story exactly like Carol Ann's sitting in your own memory right now. I want to spend a minute on why this particular scam works so well on exactly the generation watching this video, because I don't think it's an accident and I don't think it's a coincidence either. If you grew up in an era when a letter from the government, a call from a bank, an official sounding voice on the phone was something you were taught to take seriously and respond to properly, that instinct was the correct instinct to have for most of your life. Scammers didn't invent your respect for authority. They found it already sitting there, fully formed from decades of being a careful, responsible adult, and they built a script specifically designed to borrow it for 11 minutes. That's not a flaw in you, and it's not something Carol Ann did wrong by answering her phone or by momentarily believing a stranger who used official-sounding language. It is a targeted exploitation of an instinct that used to be exactly the right way to move through the world. Now let's talk about what's actually changed with this scam recently, because the tactics have gotten sharper even in the last year or two, and I don't want to leave you with a picture that's already out of date. Scammers have started layering artificial intelligence voice tools on top of the same old script, which means the calm, official-sounding tone that used to be a giveaway of a scripted call center is now harder to distinguish by ear alone. A voice that sounds warm, patient, and unmistakably American can now be generated on demand, stripped of the accent or stiltedness that used to be one of the easiest tells. They've also expanded well beyond phone calls. The IRS's own annual list of top scams now includes phishing emails, text messages, and even fake accounts on social media. Some of them impersonating IRS agents directly in your comments or your direct messages, complete with QR codes that lead to convincing fake versions of the real IRS website. In one recent wave, security researchers found phishing messages built around fake tax documents that reached tens of thousands of people across thousands of organizations in a matter of weeks. The IRS has also confirmed reporting hundreds of impersonator accounts on social media in a single year, each one built to look like an official presence dispensing tax advice or refund updates. The core 4 rules stay exactly the same across every version of this. What's changed is simply how many different doorways scammers are now trying to reach you through. So let's talk about exactly what to do, because knowing the 4 warning signs is only half of it. The other half is having a clear, simple action plan for the moment it actually happens to you or someone you love. Step 1. If you ever get a call, text, email, or social media message claiming to be from the IRS and no official letter has arrived at your home first, treat it as fraudulent immediately. That single fact, no letter first, is enough on its own to end the conversation without any further analysis needed. Step 2. Hang up or stop responding without engaging in the conversation any further. You don't owe a scammer your patience, your politeness, or an explanation. You are allowed to simply end the call the second something feels wrong, even before you've confirmed exactly which of the 4 rules was broken. Step 3. If you genuinely aren't sure whether you owe the IRS anything, call the real IRS directly yourself, using a number you look up independently, never a number the caller gave you or a number that shows up on a callback. The real number is 1-800-829-1040. A real IRS employee on that line can tell you, using your actual account, whether anything is actually owed, and there's no penalty or urgency attached to simply calling to check. You can also create an account at irs.gov to view your own balance, payment history, and any notices tied to your name directly without going through anyone on the phone at all, which is worth doing once even if you've never had a scare like this, simply so you know what your real account actually shows. Step 4. Report the call to the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, the federal office that specifically investigates IRS impersonation. Their number is 1-800-366-4484, and they also take reports through a form on their website. This is the office responsible for the arrests and prosecutions that have already stopped hundreds of people involved in this exact scheme. Over the life of this scam, more than 90 individuals have faced federal charges tied to it, several sentenced to decades in prison. And every report adds to the pattern investigators use to track down the next operation, even when it's just one more data point in a much larger case. Step 5. If the contact came by email, text, or social media rather than a phone call, forward it to phishing@irs.gov before deleting it. The IRS specifically monitors that inbox for exactly this kind of impersonation, and reporting it helps them flag and take down fraudulent websites before more people land on them. Don't click any link in the message first, even out of curiosity to see what the fake site looks like. Some of these links are built to install malicious software the moment the page loads, without you needing to enter a single piece of information for the damage to begin. Step 6. If you ever did send money or shared personal or financial information before realizing what was happening, contact your bank or the gift card company immediately. Then file a report with the Federal Trade Commission at reportfraud.ftc.gov. Speed matters enormously here. Gift card funds can sometimes still be frozen if the company is contacted within hours rather than days, and wire transfers occasionally can be intercepted if your bank acts quickly enough. There is no shame in reporting this immediately, and waiting out of embarrassment is the only thing that guarantees the money is gone for good. I want to say that last part again, more plainly, because I know pride keeps people quiet in exactly this situation. Nobody who has ever called me after losing money to this scam was foolish. Every one of them was a careful person who got caught for 11 minutes by someone whose entire job is convincing careful people. The only mistake that actually costs you the money permanently is staying silent about it afterward. Step 7, and I want you to actually do this one this week, rather than just nodding along. Sit down with someone in your life, a spouse, a sibling, a friend who still answers every unknown call the way Carol Ann always has, and walk them through these exact 4 things, not as a vague warning to be careful of scams, but as a specific checklist. No letter first, no refusal to let you question the amount, no threat of arrest today, no demand for a gift card or wire transfer. A specific checklist gets remembered in the moment it's needed. A general warning gets nodded at and forgotten by the time the next unknown number actually rings. I want to leave you with one last thought, because I think it reframes everything we've talked about today in a way that actually matters. For most of your life, dealing with the IRS meant a certain kind of quiet dread, the sense that this particular agency held enormous power over your life and finances, and that a call from them was something to fear rather than something to calmly evaluate. Scammers have weaponized exactly that inherited dread, counting on the fact that a lifetime of respecting the IRS's authority would make you less likely to question a voice claiming to represent it. But here's what I actually want you to walk away with today. The real IRS, the actual agency, communicates slowly on paper with your right to question and appeal built into every single step. It is, in its own bureaucratic way, one of the least impulsive institutions you will ever deal with. That slowness, the thing that's frustrated every taxpayer who's ever waited months for a response, is exactly what makes it identifiable. Anyone rushing you, threatening you, or demanding a gift card today has already told you, through their own impatience, that they are not who they claim to be. I think there's something almost hopeful buried in that fact, if you look at it the right way. The very quality of the IRS that makes it so frustrating to deal with when you have a real legitimate problem, the paperwork, the waiting, the notices that take weeks to arrive, is the exact same quality that makes it impossible for a criminal to convincingly imitate over an 11-minute phone call. Bureaucracy, as maddening as it can be, moves at a pace no scammer is willing to match, because their entire business model depends on speed. You don't have to become suspicious of every phone call for the rest of your life to stay safe from this. You just have to remember that the real version of this particular fear always arrives slowly on paper, with your name spelled correctly and a notice number in the corner. Everything else is a costume. I'm Henry Collins. Thank you for listening.